This is London. You will now hear a statement by the Prime Minister.
I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note. I have to tell you now, this country is at war with Germany.
Hey guys, and welcome! So, as you've seen by the title of today's video, we're gonna talk about the Battlefield 5 single player and how shallow the game actually is in the single player. Because those of you guys who watch me regularly know that I love Battlefield 5 for what it did with the multiplayer. I really like the core gameplay of the game, how the movement, gunplay and all of the other aspects are well pieced together. And overall, in the end, how the game plays out. I really enjoy playing the game in the multiplayer, but last night I decided to test out single player and see how it actually plays out. No event, no people around me, just me, my PC and the actual Battlefield 5 single player. And I have to admit, it's boring. It's really boring. The whole campaign took me literally around 3 hours to complete the whole thing. 3 hours. It is not enough for a AAA game to have a 3-hour single player campaign. I know you don't buy Battlefield for a single player campaign, but if DICE decides to implement single player at all, I personally think it should be at least somewhat decent. And it's not when it comes to the playability and enjoyability of the whole thing. When you first launch Battlefield 5, you get thrown into the prologue, and I admit, the prologue is insane. It's epic. All of the graphics, the sounds, the music, the stories being told during the prologue, it sets the expectations high. When you play the first prologue, or the prologue, it can't be the first, it's the only one. When you play the prologue, you actually feel like you have the expectations for the campaign to be epic. And it's not. It's not. It's downhill from the prologue. That's the problem. And before anyone says, you don't buy Battlefield 5 for a single player campaign, you buy Battlefield to play the multiplayer. Alright, that's fair, I agree. I didn't buy Battlefield 5 for a single player either, but if DICE decides to implement single player into the game, I personally feel like it should be at least somewhat decent and enjoyable for the players. Because the current state of the single player looks like this. The game looks beautiful. You get incredible graphics and incredible audio. All of the explosions, all of the particle effects, everything looks stunning. But that's it. The campaign just looks stunning and is simply dull. If you play the game after 5 minutes, or if you've played previous Battlefield titles, you will find the whole Battlefield campaign pattern. You're a single soldier on a war and you have to either go somewhere to blow something up, you have to go somewhere to find some information, or you have to go somewhere to rescue someone and cover them till they exit some, I don't know, prison, police department, cross out the thing that's never been done in Battlefield. There isn't many of those. Like, the point is, you literally repeat the same thing in every single Battlefield game since Battlefield 3. And just to make it clear, I don't require Battlefield to be some sort of a Red Dead Redemption 2 game type, where it's a really big game that took about 5 years to be created, or even more. I'm not really sure, I haven't played the game because I don't have a console, but you guys get the point. I don't even want Battlefield to have such campaign or such single player, but the point I'm trying to make here is that Battlefield single player recycles the same thing in every single Battlefield game, and it's boring. This whole aspect of having the one soldier that can defeat everyone and everyone around is just clueless and you're immortal in the combat, it's just boring. I mean, why not go to the multiplayer and shoot enemies there? At least they're responding and shooting you back. as opposed to single player where you can just run around on whatever difficulty level you're playing and you can just kill everyone without caring about anything. But all of the things I just listed wouldn't be that big of a problem if Battlefield 5 actually had one thing in the single player campaign which would keep players attracted to the game. Engaging storytelling, which isn't in the game, and in my not so humble opinion, this is actually the most important aspect of every single player game. What I would love to see in a Battlefield campaign is a story told with details, with depth. Current war stories, they feel incredibly shallow, because you get some cutscenes, you get some introductions, but other than that, the part of storytelling, the most important part in the single player games such as Battlefield, where you are actually based around someone's story. There is no telling of the story in Battlefield 5. There is no consistency and it's not congruent. You get into the game, complete some mission, you get a cutscene, then you get to another cutscene which doesn't explain how people went from the previous one to the current one, and it simply doesn't make any sense. Look at this clip. How did they go from this guy aiming at them with the carbine to locking this guy up in a trunk? It's like, it's insane. It's interesting, like I want to see how that happened. And they didn't include it. Why? I personally feel like the whole problem lays down in the development time that DICE actually gets to create a single player game. Because I don't know much about game design, practically nothing at all, but I suppose it takes a long time to create a game, even a single player for Battlefield 5. I'm sure it takes a long time to actually do all of those things, because if you think about it, there is so many aspects there, like you have to create those maps, after you create them you have to texture them, you have to get the voiceover actors to do the whole audio for the characters, you have to record the audio for the weapons, the explosions, also you have to design the whole core game before you can do all of those things, so it's like, alright, there is plenty of work to be done, and I feel like in those 2 years that DICE actually has to create a new Battlefield game, there's simply not enough time to focus on the actual story told behind the whole single player. Because the game would have been great if each of those war stories would be like 5 hours long. 5 hours long war stories, you get 3 of them, and each of them tells you an in-depth story of someone during the war. You have actual interesting gameplay. You get a proper gameplay with a variety of missions, things that aren't repeating each other in every single Battlefield game or aren't even repeating each other on mission to mission or war story to war story basis in Battlefield 5. That would be even more interesting than the current stories. And imagine this, all single player being 15 hours long instead of 3 hours long, that would be actually engaging. Of course, ensuring that DICE would actually make it interesting and not boring, like the current state of the war stories. But I'm sure they would come through with this, like, let's be real for a second. DICE has one of the most talented people or most talented development teams in all gaming studios, like, come on, it's DICE, like, they're here on top when it comes to the people they are working with, the people that work there, and all of the other things when it comes to the game design aspect. Like, look at Battlefield, how big of a technology difference it is compared to stuff like PUBG or Fortnite or even Rainbow Six Siege, when it comes to like development and the progress they're making. Not talking about playability here, but the whole progress when it comes to the game design. It's huge! Those guys have the people to create those awesome things. In my not so humble opinion, they just don't have enough time to do it. Playing Battlefield 5 single player campaign, not the multiplayer, only the single player, feels like dating an incredibly beautiful girl that you only like for her looks. And inside, she's incredibly stupid and shallow. If you're into men, imagine dating a handsome guy who's hot as hell but at the same time dumb as hell and you can't be bothered when he's saying anything. That's what it feels like if you play Battlefield 5 single player campaign. It's just shallow, and this is really all I can say about it. As always, if you enjoyed, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and I see you on the battlefield.